Hi, everyone. This is Amelia Furman. I am part of the board of directors for the Loveland Art Studio Tour, and I am here to help you get ready for the studio tour. We are so excited to have you be part of this event for this year. This is the 14th year, so it's been going on a while. And one of the things that, as a board, that we want to start doing is making sure that you are as ready as you can be to have the best studio tour experience that you can. So part of that is some of these workshops that we're doing. So this is a recording of the workshop that we did on August 31st at Lincoln Gallery, and it is called Preparing Your People to Buy. There's going to be more workshops coming. There's also a ton of free and downloadable resources for you available at lovelandartstudiotour.com. Just click on the artist resource page and you will see everything that is available to you as a studio tour artist. So let's go ahead and get started. Along with this presentation, there is a downloadable workbook. You can go ahead, download that, and then work with it on your computer screen, or you can print it out and use it. You can use it for taking notes today. And there's also additional questions to help you take more steps past today's workshop so that you can really start getting these different principles into practice. All right, so let's get started. All right, so this first component that we're going to be talking about, so we're going to be talking about preparing your people to buy. And what that means is getting them connected to yourself and also your artwork. Sometimes when we think about preparing people to buy, we might only be thinking about like, okay, making sure that we have the display put together in the right way, making sure that we have prices out, and make sure that we have a credit card machine running, or that we're running like special discounts to really entice people to make that step into buying. It actually is much more complex than that, and is also a lot more fun. Don't worry. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. So it's all about mindset, and it's all about connecting with yourself as the artist and also with your artwork. And so one of the things I want you guys to be thinking about for this last month before the tour is, what are all the different ways that I can connect with the people that I want to invite to the tour, the people that are going to come on it because they see the promotion and the advertising for it. How can I connect with them ahead of time? And then how can I also connect with them while the studio tour is going on? Because that is going to get people ready to be able to move from just oh, this is pretty, to I want this in my house. Okay, so that is a little bit about preparation. And so we're going to we're taking this idea of prepare and we are connecting it with the idea of connection. So connecting with connection. There are several different facets or different levels of connection. And I'm breaking them down into three different ones. Physical is the first one. And the physical connection between a collector and a visitor and yourself and your artwork is all just about the intersection of your artwork getting in front of the eyeballs of this person, or maybe they hear something from you. So it's just a very surface level connection. They don't really know much more than what's directly in front of them. It could be as simple as them seeing your artwork in a gallery, maybe seeing it for the first time on Facebook or Instagram, and they're like, oh, I like that. But there's really no further information shared. It's just very surface. So that's that physical connection. And this could also just be helping people know where to find your work. So it could be through website, social media, giving them your studio location address. So you're basically showing them where they can physically see and interact with your artwork. The next level of connection is a little bit more in depth. And you'll notice as we talk about these, we're really good usually at that surface connection, like, hey, I'm here. And here's where you see my work. Here's where you find it. And we usually show up, on our different digital platforms and share that information, because it's definitely the easiest. It's the least vulnerable, right? And then as we get moving into these facets of connection, it gets more and more vulnerable and more challenging. But the payoff is 3 times as great with the emotional connection as it is with just the simple physical connection. So you're going to see the increase in benefit every time you make a new level of connection. The other thing I will say too is the facets of connection, or the levels of connection, can happen in different interactions, and they can also happen all in one interaction. So everybody does this at a different speed. You're going to find that your collectors and your visitors all have different speeds of connecting. And you just have to be aware of that and know that every person's different. And just like you're different from your collector. All right, so back to the mental connection. So a mental connection is basically moving beyond just the physical. I see your work. It's interesting to look at. Now I now have a name to go with the artwork. To understanding the artwork more. So that's what that mental connection is. So a couple different ways that you help someone understand your work a little bit better is through sharing an artist statement. Maybe sharing your artistic process so that people can really start to see behind the scenes how your work is actually created. You are helping to answer questions that they may have. Maybe they don't even know that they have them yet, but they're starting to form and they're starting to get more curious, because we're beyond that physical level of connection. Maybe you share about the materials that you use, and you talk about that a little bit. And then you're sharing your guarantee with your work. So maybe when you are making that mental connection, people might have questions about, like, what kind of prints are these? Or what happens if I purchase this work, like, and I find it doesn't fit in my space, or whatever. When you are sharing how you like to run your business and how you like to exchange your artwork for the money that the collector brings and what comes along with that, you are making a mental connection. You are helping to move information from what's in your mind and then into the mind of the collector. So it's just an information sharing type of thing. The next level, our next facet of connection, is emotional connection. And this is by far the deepest level of connection with someone who's going to be coming to the studio tour. And this has all to do with how someone feels about your work and how it makes them feel. And usually, this type of emotional connection is brought about through the sharing of stories. So while the mental connection is more about information sharing, the best way to help people emotionally connect with your work is by sharing stories. So maybe, or some of the different things that you could share that help move people into emotional connection is to tell your story about why you create what you create. So that could just be a more of a general story. You could even talk about the story about why you created a specific piece that they might be interacting with. Tell your background story about how you became an artist. You can share some of the challenges of doing your work and how you overcame them. This is a great way to emotionally connect with people. Share about what your artwork does for you as the creator of it, and then what you hope that the artwork will do for the collector. This is something I go into a little bit more in depth with in one of my other available workshops, which is called Getting to the Heart of Your Artwork. And so if that idea is a little bit confusing to you, or you're not even quite sure how to answer that, or how to tell a story about the why you create what you create, that particular workshop, which is free to you during the studio tour time, can be helpful in answering some of those questions. So you can go grab that at the artist resource page. You can also share about what is the inspiration for your work? And all of these different things, the way we're telling the stories, the way that, or the information that we're sharing in this particular type of emotional connection. The reason it's so impactful is because people find ways of like understanding that information on a very personal level. So, for instance, if you are talking about your background story with how you got started in art, someone, the person who's looking at it may also resonate with your background story if it has, similar challenges in it or different things that they're like, oh, I never really would have thought about that before. Because what this does is it brings you back onto the not the artist level, but the human level with that person. So all of a sudden then there's a commonality, and that type of like you're like me and I'm like you type of scenario. And yes, you may be very different, but when people start to find those type of common bonds, it helps them to emotionally connect. All right. So those are the different facets of connection. And like I said, they can happen at different times. They can also happen all at the same time, just throughout a conversation or throughout an interaction. All right. So, along with facets of connection, here's a couple of our vehicles of connection. So, this is the way some of the tools that we use for connecting. And these are just a couple of them. And so as you're listening to this, if there's other ones that you think of, write them down because it's really good to have that whole list of connections, connection tools available to you when you are getting ready to launch information. You can access that tool list and say, what's the best way for me to be able to connect with people in preparation for the studio tour? Couple different vehicles or email. And this would be through like an email list. If you are sending out to your collectors, it is really important to have a third party email list platform. So this could be MailChimp, which is free. There's also Flowdesk, there's Constant Contact, and things of that nature. And so this allows you to basically send out emails to a larger group of people than just say your friends and family. If you are starting out with your friends and family, go ahead and use the accounts that you have. Just do everyone a favor and make sure that it is copied just to you and everyone else is blind carbon copied so that you're not making everyone else's email addresses available to everyone that's going on your list. But like I said, in general, when you start moving towards using email as a way of connecting with your collectors, it behooves you. And it's also just good business practice to have an email platform that you work with. Social media is another one. So Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, Pinterest, any of those types of platforms that their main focus is helping people connect with each other. So that's a great way to do it. Most of us are on Facebook and Instagram, and you get to kind of pick the ones that you like working with and where you can find the collectors. So, and we'll talk a little bit more about how to find your people in just a little bit. Phone calls and texts are another great way of connection. Printed materials such as business cards, postcards, flyers, rack cards, advertisements in magazines, newspapers, posters, all of those things are ways to connect. And then in person, face to face connection. And we know the value of that after not being able to do that for 2 years straight with COVID. And so I would definitely say that the most valuable, most impactful, and efficient way of connecting is the in-person face-to-face. That doesn't mean that the other ones are not also important, but the in-person face-to-face is the best one. All right. So one thing I want you to think about is which of the vehicles that are mentioned is actually the easiest one for you? What was most, not necessarily like, um, that you're really good at as far as being able to implement quickly, but what feels the most natural to you? Are you someone that really just finds that you enjoy doing the face to face? The conversation just flows really naturally? Or are you someone that just really loves chatting on the phone, or writing that email, or what have you? Think about those things. The reason this is important is because you want to utilize the vehicles that come most naturally to you. And again, like I said before, this doesn't mean you can avoid and neglect the other ones, but work with what feels most like you. And that's one of the important things when it comes to um, preparing your people, connecting with them, is doing what is natural. And then, focusing on that and then getting better at the other ones through time. All right. So, one thing I want you to think about, and you can write this down in your workbook, is what can you authentically share that will result in someone thinking, me too, I get that, or I want more. So think through that, and it is probably not nearly as entertaining or exciting as you may think. Think about all the different aspects of your story, your artwork, your process, the tools you use, any of that information, and write down everything that comes to mind that would be good to share to help people to connect with you. What's something you would really like them to know? Okay, so the next portion that we're going to be talking about after we've talked about this whole idea of preparing, which is in essence connecting people with your artwork and yourself, is figuring out what your people actually means. One of the things that is really important for us as artists to remember is that not everyone is our customer. It's a quote from Seth Godin, who is a marketing expert. When we try to market to everybody, we basically market to nobody. Your people are the people that are going to be in your audience. So there is something about this group of people that makes them interested in your artwork, makes them interested in you, and so connected that they actually want to start purchasing your work, and they value what you're bringing to the table. And so some of the characteristics, regardless of who, like other extraneous types of personality traits or style or whatever, that would describe your people. Here's some common ones that you'll be able to see in each one of your groups, your audience groups. That is specifically your audience group. Is they will respect you, they will like your work, they will have some money to spend, they see the value of art, and they also resonate with your art's message. And so those are some of those common things that are going to characterize this group. There may be other things that you can think of. And so I get my question is do you know who your people are? If you are not sure who your people are, or your audience, target audience is another way of talking about it. Think about someone, maybe a couple, or a single person who has collected your artwork in the past. Maybe they've collected more than one piece, and you find that you've built a relationship with them. Take some time to detail out what makes this person different from everyone else. Are they a certain age? Are they are they male or female? Are they really into certain hobbies, or do they have a certain lifestyle that is indicative of someone who may be a collector of your work? For example, in my own work, since I'm a landscape artist and I work in paper collage as well, one of the things that is pretty common among my collectors is they love spending time outside. They also have a very high value of family, and of community involvement. They also really love learning and discovery. So those are a couple things that typically I find in common with my particular audience. But spend some time making a list of the things that you know are fairly common in the people that buy your work, and who follow you, and some of the other things you can know, like if you haven't sold a lot of artwork yet, look at the people that typically are fans of your artwork, come to your different shows, maybe like and comment your posts on social media, reply to your emails, any of that type of thing. Those you can also study those people and find out what are the common things for these people as well. And so you're going to be able to look at that and be able to start to see some common threads, some different things as you list that all out. Another question you want to ask yourself is, where did you find this person? Were they a neighbor? Did you find them in a Facebook group? Were they at a hobby type of place where, like, maybe they were at the dog park and you met them, through having your dogs interact. So think about the way that you know, met this person, or maybe several of your people. And then think about where you can find more of the same type of people. Because while you're never going to find the exact same person, you're going to find people that are like them. And these are going to be able to grow your audience more. So here are just some common tips for addressing your people. This, again, like we talked about, this is your common or your target audience. You want to make sure that you make it personal. So if you have a way in your emails or obviously through phone and text and all of that, make it personal. Talk to them directly, and be thinking about them as you're writing messages. Keep it simple and specific. One of the things that I've learned over time is that it's best to keep your communication to one idea and ask them to do one action. Speak to the problem. Maybe there is something that your audience members are looking for, whether it's a gift for the holiday season, maybe it is filling a wall space, maybe it's even deeper than that. Our problems tend to go in levels just like connection does. So usually there's, very surface problems like, I need a gift, I've got a bare wall, all that kind of stuff. And then it moves down into deeper things like, I want to be respected in my neighborhood circle. I want someone to really appreciate me because of the things that I can give them. Or it could even be philosophical, on a philosophical level, like people like me should blah, blah, blah. So those different problems, you can spend time exploring what you think the problems your target audience is dealing with. And you need to start thinking too about how your artwork is the solution for those problems. And artwork, believe it or not, actually addresses every level of problem. So a great way to look at this, I'm going to give you a little tip, is there's a book called Story Brand, and it's by Donald Miller. And it goes through how you can work with a target audience and start to identify what the problem is that you are bringing a solution for. And so that goes through the whole process of figuring that out, and ask great questions about that. And you can go ahead and implement that into your art business and how you connect with people on the various levels. And then the other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're showing up consistently. This means that, you're showing up not sporadically, but maybe you're showing up at the same time every day on social media. Maybe you're showing up every 3 days on there. Whatever it is, people really want to know that they can trust that you're going to still be there. So, showing up for one thing during the year and then disappearing for the rest of the year is not consistency. You want to make sure that you are getting in front of people and all sorts of different aspects, and just make it part of your schedule. Okay, so that takes care of that, and we're going to go on to the next one. So the last part of this phrase has to do with buying. And you may think that this is a really simple idea. Yeah, there's all it is it's I'm basically giving them something of value in exchange for money. And yes, that is what ends up happening at the very end. However, there's an entire process of what I like to call buy-in before this often happens, especially when it comes to artwork. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to build buy-in to get them to that step of buying the artwork. And this is something that we can be working on throughout this month before the studio tour happens. And it's also something that you can be doing during the studio tour to help for um, people taking that, just making that decision to collect your work right before the holidays. So the studio tour is a great last step for people who have already you've been connecting with, and it's also a great first step for people that you just need to start building connection with, and then that collection aspect will come later. So um, some of the things or some of the ways that you can or that people take action steps to get them to a place of buy-in is they may take a business card. They may attend an event that you host. And maybe the first time they go, they don't interact with you at all. Maybe the second time they go, they ask you a question or two. Maybe they introduce themselves. They feel a little bit more confident that this is the next step that they want to take. Then they share what they like about your work. And maybe you ask them a couple more questions. And then all of a sudden they sign up for your email. And then they check out your website. And then eventually they purchase from you. Maybe a print, maybe a class, maybe an original piece, maybe a commission, and maybe all of the above. So you can see on this diagram that it's just a very linear process. That's how it is sometimes. But honestly, a lot of times it looks a lot more like this picture. We're back and forth, we're weaving, we're going all over the place, we're questioning our own ability to make investment choices when it comes to art. People are really, every one of them, so unique in their buying journey. And so just know that this type of method or this type of journey to being able to go from, hi, I'm so and so, I see you're an artist, to I would like to buy that piece off the wall. It is perfectly fine to have it be this way as well as linear. Like I said, each one of us is very different. So when it comes to buy-in, what are some things that you can have in place during the studio tour that are going to help people make those steps? So that's something I want everyone to write down and think through so that you can be utilizing this idea to get people ready to move from a visitor and someone who is just checking things out to someone who is ready to invest in your artwork. And these are all different things that you can also be doing during this month. So maybe that means you have a place where people can sign up for your email list. Maybe that means that you're sending out a weekly email to get people connected to your artwork on a mental and also an emotional level, where you're sharing stories and maybe you're sharing more about your materials that you use or your process. Maybe it's having business cards in a couple different places where your target audience typically goes. One of my typical places I like to have things is at the library. That's where a lot of my people hang out, or at outdoor centers and things of that nature. A lot of my people also, since they value art, they're going to be in places where they can see other art. So maybe at galleries and different places like that. So those are a couple different things that you can have in place during the studio tour. to help with buy-in. Um, and I guess that's pretty much it as far as that particular idea with the buy-in. Um, so let's move on to essentials for buy-in steps toward buying. So these are a couple different things to have ready at your studio location. The other things definitely were more like not only for during the studio tour, but before as well, those different things. So a couple things you're going to definitely want to have are signage and pricing, making sure that it's easy to find and understand. Having your pricing available so that people don't have to ask is going to help them feel so much more comfortable. Simple options. Sometimes we make the mistake as artists of giving people every option under the sun. And what that does is it causes people to almost get paralyzed in their buy-in process. All of a sudden, they have no idea what would be best for them. And so limiting the options is actually really, really helpful for your collectors. Having an easy payment and transaction process is really important as well. And so, if you are going to be taking credit card, have that all set up, be practiced at it so that you're not fumbling around. Make it as easy for the client as possible to be able to do that transaction process so that they're not sitting around going, oh, I hope this is you don't want to give them time basically to talk themselves out of this hard step that they're making to collect artwork, because a lot of times people sit in a place where they are just not sure that they can trust themselves to make the right choice. So when they take that leap of faith and they're brave for that 30 seconds to say, yes, I want this, you want to help move them along in that as opposed to halting that and making that, having that fear come back. So an easy takeaway process. And basically what this is about is it's about packaging. So do you have packaging ready to go? Do you know how you're going to package it? Can you do it quickly and easily? One thing to consider is having someone that is available to do that for you so that you're not wrapped up having to do it. Another thing you could consider doing is delivery. This is an extra bonus thing of value that you can give to people that are visiting that are local. You can say, hey, I want you just to enjoy checking out all the artwork. I will deliver this to you after the studio tour and hang it for you, or place it, or however you need to display the artwork that you are offering. So another thing to have to help with buy-in, steps toward buy-in, is answers to people's objections. So take some time before the studio tour, write down the various objections that people have given you in the past, or maybe you have artist friends and you could, question them, like pick their brain a little bit. What do people tell you as far as them not being able to collect something? Maybe it's I don't have enough wall space, or oh, this doesn't really go with the rest of with my decor. Or oh wow, that's really way out of my budget. Oh, I'm out of town, or whatever. Whatever those objections are, your job as the artist is not necessarily to answer them outright, but to help the client be able to answer those questions for themselves. So it's almost like you are taking them by the hand. You're not going to basically throw them across the bridge, the objection bridge, if you will, but you're going to walk with them. So you're going to ask them questions to help them figure out the answers to their questions, because if you do it that way, then you are helping them to invest in the solutions, and you're helping to get them ready. You're basically helping them make those buy-in steps, because it's important that they're doing the buy-in, not you. You don't need to convince. All you're doing is helping them move from one place to another. So for instance, say you have someone who says, well, I love this piece, but I just don't have any more wall space. I am out of wall space. One of the questions you can ask at that point is, you can say, oh, yeah, I totally get that. So curious though, if you did have wall space, where would you put it? And what this does is it helps them to start thinking about where this piece could potentially go. Maybe if they move some stuff around. Typically, when people are giving objections, it's because they're just scared to make the final investment. And so it's their brain's way of putting barriers up to keep them safe. This is something that my business coach has talked to me quite a bit about and to our group about. Our brain wants to keep us safe and secure and not have us try anything new. And so objections are typically people's way of their brains basically getting in the way of them making that choice and doing something that's new and kind of scary. So writing down your answers to those objections is going to be super helpful. So then that way, when they come up at the studio tour or in, future events, you will be prepared and ready to help them walk across their little objection bridge and get what they want, which is that artwork. So the last essential for buy-in steps towards buying is trust. It's really important to be able to start establishing trust. So this means showing up consistently. This means bringing artwork that is of fine craftsmanship, that it is durable, like it's going to last. All these different things really help build a sense of trust in yourself as the artist, and also just in your business. And so think about all the different ways that you can build trust with the people that are coming to the studio tour. Some of that has to do with how you interact with them. Other times it has to do with, with thinking about how you can serve them as opposed to serving yourself. Because people are far more trustworthy when they feel that you have their best interest in mind, not yours. So those are just some things to think about, journal about, and write down all the different ways that you can be building that trust. All right. So that is preparing your people to buy. And so now is the time to basically go through your workbook, go through the different questions that are in each of the sections. I am available at any time during the studio tour to talk with you about this content. If you have specific questions that came up for you, don't hesitate to get in touch with me. This is where you can get in touch with me. There's my phone, my email address. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. Sign up for my mailing list to see how I am doing that type of connection through email. One of the best things to do as an artist is start observing what other artists are doing that you really admire and who are successfully selling their work. See what they're doing, not to copy them, but to learn from them. So get in touch with me if you have questions about this content. Don't forget, there's tons of free resources at the lovelandartiststudiotour.com website under the artist resource page. Thanks again for joining, and can't wait to see how you guys do at the studio tour and how you are able to make new connections with new buyers and continue to connect with people you already know. So I'm wishing you the best for the studio tour, and we'll talk to you soon.